Hello and welcome to the Let That Shift Go podcast. I'm Noel.
And I'm Lena.
And this is where we talk about the good, the bad, and all the shift in between.
We'll just talk mad shift.
Let's get into it. And on today's episode, we're talking about using the mirror to shift. But before we get into that, let's get into these Skin Deep cards. See if we can get some questions going.
All right, I'll go first. How do you know I know you?
Well, not only do you I can tell you pay attention to me. You know, what's kind of moving for me. And I think that I know you know me because you often tell me what I'm thinking or how I'm feeling. Or, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
That kind of thing. So I really feel like you're kind of tapped in to like my body language and that kind of thing. You can almost tell when I'm faking it or when I'm not.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. I think that's true.
Okay.
My question is, when was the last time I misunderstood you and why do you think I did?
Last time you misunderstood me and why do I think you did? I mean, other than childhood?
Yeah, I mean, it could be anything. Yeah.
Well, I'd say the big misunderstanding was, I think we've talked about it before, was that I always thought that I had left you behind, you know, because we were separated when I was 6 and you were 2.
Yeah.
And for most of my life, I always felt this sense of guilt that I left you, you know, in at another house and not with Dad, and that you were in a bad situation. And so there was always this sense of guilt. And so I think that, you know, there was this period when you said, you know, when we were kids that I was kind of, I don't know, how did you say it? Like,
I didn't want you to be around. I didn't want, because I thought it was not a safe place.
Yeah.
So
I think
kind
just
of was abrasive on purpose. Yeah.
So not really being on the same page, not knowing what was happening in each other's movie theaters.
Yeah. Because I
was a
had
big
the
part of
story in my head and I was only, you know, super like a toddler essentially. And so my thought or my understanding of the situation was, Dad and our stepmom brainwashed you to make you think that you didn't want to stay with us and you wanted to stay at the other place, or you got kidnapped or something like there was some kind of story in that effect.
Yeah.
And the way we just felt like a total misunderstanding because you felt like you left and I felt like
It's like a 30-year misunderstanding.
Yeah.
That's a long time.
Yeah.
Too long. All right.
So let's get into this topic, using the mirror to shift. And really it has affected me a lot this last year because I realize more and more each day that the issues that I'm dealing with are, you know, basically things that I see or things that I judge, or things and topics that I need to deal within myself.
Yeah.
And maybe like an example would be, my kids, you know, like their whole lives, if they had a messy room, I would, you know, get angry at them. But, you know, as a kid, I really had a messy room. I was terrible. And I didn't like that I had a messy room growing up. And so when I see my kids have that, I feel like maybe they're struggling and aren't happy. And it's a reflection of their inner
Because that was what was happening for you.
Yeah, that's what was happening with me. So I feel like I'm failing in a sense. It's like, clean up your room and got to show them discipline and all that kind of stuff. And when I really sat to think about it through all this work, it was like I'm looking in the mirror. Yeah. And that is an issue that I just really haven't dealt with yet.
Yeah.
You know, that self-worth and all those things. And when I looked at it from a different perspective and understanding that I was just projecting my feelings onto them, I had to pull back a little bit because I was being a little bit too harsh on those things.
Yeah. I mean, I love the question that comes up often, or, you know, that what if everyone is a mirror? What if everyone you meet is a mirror for you in some way, mirroring back to you some belief about yourself or belief about the world or an internal belief about how the world works? And what if that was, you know, each time was an opportunity to kind of get closer to that, right? And so one of the ways that that's come up that I love to kind of think about is like when I am harshly judging someone else.
Yeah.
Or I feel like I have an aversion to like, I just don't like them. And that's rarely that I kind of move into that space now, just because every time I feel that, I'm like, what is it in them that is reflecting back to me something about me?
An
So
insecurity, maybe?
maybe an insecurity, or there's a judgment on who I think they are.
Okay.
And if I have a judgment on who I think they are,
Yeah.
then for me, that's like you need to tune in and see what is it, what are they reflecting back about you, about me
Yeah.
personally. So my example was really, it's pretty basic, but I was going to a seminar and there was someone speaking, and I just never liked to hear them speak because every time they spoke, it was just like they're just quoting a book for word and throwing names out about different, authors or people they knew.
Name drops kind of
Yeah.
thing.
And I just felt like there's no content here that feels like, how did you interpret it? And what did you get out of the material? And what did it mean to you? And because I wanted that, I wanted like the synthesis of it from your perspective, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And so, every time they'd come on, I'd be like, I don't want to go to that one. I don't want to hear it. And I would just feel this like shut down.
Yeah.
And I realized like, oh, I have a strong aversion. And why is it? I don't even know them. I don't know them personally. I don't know if what I'm thinking is true. It's just a judgment I've made. And now I don't like that,
Yeah.
And so it took me some time to be like, okay, whatever I so harshly judge, there's something in it for me. Like how is that perceived behavior mirroring back to me something that I'm afraid about myself? And I realized like, oh, that's definitely something that I am, I don't want to do, or I'm terrified that I would do, is, not being like just quoting something, but not really
Not being authentic.
not being authentic, not giving it my own, interpretation or how it affected me, and not bringing like more light to it in a way that could help someone else. And I realized that that's something I'm very afraid of doing. And so this thing that I was harshly judging was really something about me, like a fear of an inadequacy in myself. So it was like, wow, that actually worked.
That's something you're highly fearful of.
Yeah.
And you see somebody doing that.
Is not being authentic.
And it kind of turns you off because it's one of your big fears.
Yes, definitely. So it does kind of make me think about like, all right, every interaction, if I'm judging, what am I judging? I'm judging something in me. If that's a mirror, what is it reflecting back to me that I'm afraid of, or that is like a shadow for me? And it really goes back to the concept that was attributed by Carl Jung.
Yeah.
So he introduced the idea of the shadow in psychology, and it represents the unconscious part of someone's personality, right? Like weakness, desires, and instincts.
Yeah.
So according to him, when someone dislikes or has a strong negative reaction, which you can feel in your body.
Yeah. I get them all the time.
Or like, ew, yuck.
Yeah.
It's probably a reflection of your own shadow, some trait that you've not acknowledged or you've not accepted. And it's known as a shadow projection. So I was definitely shadow projecting.
And that's what we're calling a mirror kind of thing.
Yes, shadow projection. So if you look at it like you can use every situation or each interaction with someone that feels in some way, triggering, or in some way that it like brings something up for you that's uncomfortable, like, no, oh, here's an opportunity. There's an opportunity to look, that maybe there's something here for me to see that I'm judging. How do I identify with it? Right? So I don't know. I like it. I think it's a good way to even come into deeper self-awareness when you're able to look at that. You can come out of your ego, and not just be like, no, they're just horrible.
Yeah, just horrible person.
Yeah.
Yeah, they suck.
Yeah. Instead, turning it on yourself and being like, what about them reflects something that I feel about myself?
What was it that changed your perspective on that? Or did you have an experience, or did you work through that?
Really, it was just bringing awareness, like actually sitting down and going, perhaps this is true. Perhaps it's a possibility that there's something here for me to look at. And once I did that, then I kind of took that lens off and I started to listen more and see more. And it was like, well, if she is or not, what does it matter to me? But why does it bother me so much? There's the whole reason is, why does this bother me so much?
Yeah.
So that bringing that self-awareness to it kind of gave me something to work on. And once I was like, oh yeah, that's definitely something I'm afraid of.
Yeah.
Then it kind of, it shined the light on it. I was able to kind of like work through it and be like, yeah, don't do that then.
Yeah.
If you're going to read a book or you're going to give a quote, like talk about how it affected you and how you integrated that into your life and how someone else could. Like bring originality to it. And so that kind of, it took away the necessity for me to have a reaction to whether or not that was happening.
It sounds like it created, creativity and expanded yourself and gave you removed a limiting belief for yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It exposed a limiting belief.
Yeah.
It exposed a fear. And so that probably did help me kind of move into a different space of, oh yeah, that's something I'm actually afraid of. If I didn't know, then I could probably repeat it or do it. And then be like, oh, that's how I find out. But
yeah, I feel like there's like the cosmic thing where people are brought into our lives to kind of help us deal with the things that we need to deal with. You know what I mean? Like work on these shadows and, particularly relationships, like our intimate relationships, they say that I don't know, in some ways they generalize it and say, oh, you're attracted to somebody that's like your dad or somebody that's like your mom. And I really didn't understand what that meant. I thought they meant like that looks like your mom or acts like but it really is a deeper meaning in a sense that you're attracted to what's familiar. And if your mother had these types of hurts, you may be attracted to that type of person who has those
it's
hurts.
Comfortable.
And so all they do is mirror all of your hurts all day long. And so And that it creates conflict unless you know how to, being good in a relationship isn't being good at having great times. Cause I think during the great times, it's fantastic. It's learning how to fight better. Right. And move and navigate through conflict in a different way. And, we talked about it before, coming together to go against the topic as opposed to fighting each other.
Yeah.
So, with me, go ahead.
It's an opportunity to repattern too.
Yeah, it is. I mean, that was something that I was thinking about. I think I read it somewhere, but it was talking about how a disco ball, right, is like a tiny ball with a million pieces of broken glass just kind of glued all back together. And I kind of thought in myself, it's like, man, I've been dealing with a lot of these mirrors, lately, and reflecting and looking deep into them and trying to process each one. And I feel like once I break that pattern, I've been able to break that mirror. And I put it back in the form of a disco ball.
Yeah.
That has the perspective of 360 degrees, capable of seeing light and shadow from all different angles. And just taking each one and kind of look at it as like a little magic ball of light that I get to,
I like that.
repurpose the mirror when I break it.
I like that.
Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah. I think
big time.
It's, something more recently, especially with the intimate relationship between me and my wife. There was, some a cycle of conflict that was continuous, and I had the feeling that she wasn't protecting my feelings and doing things that were hurtful to me. And through counseling, I was told, well, in that particular case, she may not be thinking about your feelings or how it would hurt you. Rather, they would be concerned about how you would react to whatever the case, the situation is. And I thought, well, that was validation for myself, because that's exactly what's happening is, she's worried about protecting herself from me rather than worrying about my feelings. And so I just got on this high horse for a good week or two. And I was just thinking, man, yeah, that's what's happening. That's what's happening. And then it came really right front and center that I was doing the exact same thing. And to the point where it like brought me to tears when I realized it, because I was in counseling and I was talking about what was going on. And she said, you remember that thing we talked about last week where looking, where the other person is more concerned about protecting themselves from you than protecting you from what was happening? And I said, yeah. And she said, well, you're doing the exact same thing. You just don't notice. And I thought, and I definitely was. I was more worried about protecting myself from what was going to happen or what I thought was going to happen. It was all a projection, in the future, which is where all the anxiety comes from. But seeing that perspective, it was, I'm not taking Ellen's feelings in consideration and having compassion for her viewpoint fully, and understanding either being incapable or unwilling or whatever the case may be. That had to be shifted into a perspective from the mirror.
Yeah.
And until I really dealt with that, it was like, here's something else I really need to work on. And it has a lot to do with self-worth, and trying to prove my worth and that kind of thing. So this mirror and the shadow, what does Carl Jung call it? The shadow
projection.
Shadow projection, is something that's so prevalent in the self-awareness and the dive of, looking into ourselves and reflection into ourselves.
Well, when we're not, we're just building up stuff. So it's accumulation of negative emotions like anger, fear, all of that, which then starts to spill over into every other part of your life or your relationship. So a lot of frustration. Who wants to live like that, right? If we don't become aware, then we just start storing more and more, piling on more and more.
Yeah.
Being more and more angry. And then it's just a snowball effect.
Yeah. But it's still a challenge to first, I guess, recognizing that you're triggered, right?
Yeah.
And I think the rain effect, I think we could, pull that into effect, because you recognizing that it's there and allowing it to be there, right? And then investigating,
inquiring,
inquiring and
nurturing.
Yeah. And really getting to the source of the root of what that is.
Yeah.
And whether that's writing or just, thinking about it or meditating.
Yeah.
And then what's the next step? Like, how do we now resolve that?
Like when you figure out, okay, this is a thing. Well, at that moment, first you got to be willing. Okay, before we can even get in there, you have to be willing to look inward, examine your reactions, your feelings, and your behaviors critically.
You got to recognize the mirror's even there.
Yeah, recognize is whatever's upsetting you. Consider first: is this a mirror? Is this reflecting something back to me for me to learn about myself? Is whatever the story I'm telling about this person, put your name in it instead of theirs. Right? So for me, it would be, I constantly quote people and name drop, but I give no original material to what I'm talking about. Okay. And it'd be like, oh yeah, I'm actually afraid of doing that.
Yeah.
Okay. So then it would be like, this is why I'm judging this person that I don't even know, right? Based on my perception.
Yeah.
So that was an opportunity for me to look inward. So now what do I do with it? Is really kind of just recognize okay, I don't want to do that. Okay, well, how do you not do that? Right? Be more authentic, talk more openly, not be afraid to express how the material affected me and what it did and what I think about it, and just keep, trusting that and moving forward with it. Well, then I'm not doing it, hopefully, right? Hopefully. And the funny thing is, after I did that, I really didn't have the energy around judging it in someone else, because it's like it served its purpose. That mirror served its purpose.
Thank you for that mirror. Yeah.
Thank you for that mirror. So it's just, if you can have a willingness to be curious that when you're going into a judgment or you're just really upset about the behavior of someone else, is put your name in that they are doing it, I am doing, or I do this. Yeah. And then just see, is that something? And just really be with it. Like ask yourself without your ego, or without your need to defend, and just see if it's possible, because it happens a lot. That's that projection.
Yeah. I spent 2 weeks in it, just validating myself. It was yes, I figured something out. I finally labeled something. Yeah. And then when it was, this big shiny mirror that was like, no, you do that. And I was like, oh.
Yeah. Okay. Man. Well, the moment you labeled it.
Yeah.
Okay.
It gives me something to approach. Yeah.
Right. If you moment you label it, this is what's wrong. Okay. How do you do that? How do I do that? Okay. Let me work on that.
Yeah.
Because probably when it's coming up again, it's just it's not fueled with as much fire, Yeah. Or it's just less triggering to you. And it's just that doesn't really bother me anymore. I wonder why. Well, because your guitar string's not being plucked every time it comes up.
Yeah.
So it's just having some self-awareness and being able to look in without the ego, without the need to defend, maybe journaling, maybe actually asking people around you.
Yeah.
Is this something, do you think, some of you feel safe with, that can be honest with you, and get some reflection back from them, maybe, but just having every moment, everything that you see that is kind of eliciting some kind of response, negative response, is find that as a moment to be like, is this a shadow projection?
Yeah. Well, like even as you're talking, I'm thinking about stuff. I'm like thinking, what is like real for me right now? And it's like safety,
Mm-hmm.
And then when I go, okay, Noel, like I need and I want safety and security, but that's also what I need to provide, actually.
Yeah.
And it's been voiced.
Yeah.
So it's been a discussion. So I'm thinking about it. I'm like, yeah, it's just so in your face.
That's so, okay. That's true.
It's what I want most, but it's what my partner wants most also. But I'm negating it because I'm worried about, we're both kind of doing the same things in a sense.
Yeah.
Worrying about protecting ourselves from each other because neither of us feel safe.
Yeah.
In some instances, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
Whatever it is you want and you're mad that you're not getting, how are you not providing it?
Yeah, I like that process that you said. Like, just change the name.
Yeah.
Put it on yourself. Put it on yourself and own it.
Yeah. It works.
It does, but it's not fun.
No, it's not. Most of this is not fun.
That's the part where you break the mirror and you smash it and you're in demolition mode. And we're taking the styrofoam ball we got from Michael's and we're just, we got our whatever glue, our glue gun, and we're, kind of gluing it all back together, trying to make a nice shiny ball of white light.
Yeah. I don't know. I invite everyone to just use every situation that feels like it's triggering or it feels it's activating. I like the word activating because you can feel an activation is just like, ooh, is this a shadow projection? Can I look at this? Is this a mirror? Are they mirroring for me? And if you're in relationship, man, you get the most mirrors in relationship. You get the most mirrors with your kids.
Yeah.
You get to see all the patterns you're playing out, all of the pains, all of the old wounds and hurts, because a lot of times in partnership, when we go into a partnership with not very much awareness, we're picking the people that are going to teach us the most.
Yeah.
Which is not the easiest relationships.
Yeah.
But they come in for a reason or a season. So figure it out. Which one are you in?
A reason or a season.
Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, my kids are like also a gigantic mirror.
Oh, for sure.
Like constantly, like all the insecurities I have and things that I worry about. And of course, I'm guilty of trying to give them everything that I didn't have, and then jealous because they have every opportunity that I didn't have, and they're not doing what I did or what I would have done. That's the judgment.
Or you don't appreciate it as much as you should because I didn't,
What I would have done if I was in your shoes. That's what everybody judges, right? But that's with hindsight. That's with me knowing what I know now. I was, in a situation and I didn't do better, and that's why I'm judging them. You know what I mean? And so the kids are a constant reminder. But there's also like positive mirrors, or maybe there's instead of a what Carl Jung said is the shadow projection. Maybe there's a light projection, because there's also times when I see things in my kids that I just absolutely adore. Yeah. And it's things that are, that even when they're an infant, it's like things that are kind of like me or their mom, whether it's how they have a dimple or how they smile or whatever. There's just little things that each of them, and they're so different. Each of one of our kids are different, but they act and move differently. And in each way, I kind of see myself. And some of those are those light projections, I think, that are just, fulfilling. But somehow they can be overshadowed, and we don't celebrate those. Yeah.
Yeah, I think I like that because, if the mirror works both ways. It's not just reflecting back the bad. It also can reflect back the good. So if you find, someone who's just like, wow, activating you in the certain way of like awe, or admiration, is they're reflecting something back in you that you probably recognize in yourself, or something that you really value. Yeah. And I've had that with friends or people that I meet that I'm like, I just want to know them. There's something about the way that they speak or the way that they, carry themselves or whatever it is. And it's reflecting something to me that I really value, or maybe something that I value in myself. So it can work, on both spectrums. It's not just negative, but it's really value versus judgment.
Yeah.
So do you value it or you judge it?
Oh, so that's how you know the difference
shadow?
between the light versus a shadow.
Yeah. Is it something you value or is it something you judge? And if it's something you value, it's also something that's probably reflected within you as well.
Yeah.
Right. Or something that's possible for you. Even jealousy. Jealousy is a mirror of like, instead of being jealous and thinking, why do they have that? They're showing you what's possible for you. If you looked at somebody and had the mirror of positivity, where you see something that someone's doing, they're just showing you what's possible for you. That's also a mirror.
Yeah. Well, it really makes me feel, connect with that other podcast about the 5 people you hang around with, things that you listen to. Surrounding yourself with positive people and seeing things light in other people's and being attracted to that and then mirroring those things.
Yeah.
Because those are also lessons, but those are good lessons.
Yeah. Expansive.
Those are expansive and running your race and looking to the right and left and seeing the people that are also running those same races.
Yeah.
Those are like, I see those as like the light projections.
Yeah, definitely.
More so, right?
Definitely.
Being able to celebrate those things. But, getting out and seeing more people, and mirrors aren't necessarily a bad thing, because I think everybody has this fear of those things. But, a fear of the mirror, like looking into the mirror and dealing with those hard things. But it really is an opportunity to grow, It
is. It absolutely is. In good ways, in all good ways, because if you can recognize something that is something you want to improve upon or something you want to, bring a light onto that shadow, then that's just helping you to rise.
Yeah.
And something that you value in someone else, like more of that. Get to know them. Get to know yourself better. How do you want to expand that quality in yourself?
Yeah.
And
just taking the time. So each time, like you always say, the treasures are in the triggers.
Your triggers are your treasures.
Your triggers are your treasures.
Yeah.
And using those as positive, but as ways to move forward and move through things rather than being fearful of them.
No. I'm telling you, I look at it like every time there's a trigger, it's like ding, ding, class is in session. The teacher is here.
Well, it's like that thing that I like to say, and we talked about earlier today, was changing your vernacular when you're talking to little kids. Instead of saying, be careful, it's pay attention. And
what's your next step?
So if you get a trigger, it's not be careful.
Yeah.
It's all right. Pay attention. There's something to learn
Pay
here.
attention.
Because I think right now triggers for me are like, oh, be careful. Like, what the fuck is going to happen?
Don't step
next?
on that landmine.
Yeah, because I've been living in survival. But, looking to the light, and, sometimes we feel like, oh, what good is going to happen next, And what we focus on grows, kind of thing, and the positivity and the positive triggers type things. So what are things that we can, in conclusion, what are the steps, I think, to, I guess, like the RAIN method is the way to kind of recognize, acknowledge, inquire and nurture. So when we're nurturing, what are we doing to kind of, close those things and kind of move through those things? So we talked about how to nurture them. I think it's probably pretty deep, but you probably have to do some writing and maybe talk to your therapist or get some sort of help with that.
Definitely, maybe talk to somebody you trust, a good friend or a therapist, if you're able to reach out to someone. But I think using the RAIN method, even in this instance, is something, because it's just awareness training, right? Just recognizing, something is activating here, and then allowing that to be there so that some awareness can open up, your mind can open up, allowing the feeling to be in the body, and then inquiring, what is this about? Like, what is it I'm judging about them? And use the method of like, put your name in that statement.
Yeah.
Whatever it is that you have come up with.
Yeah.
The reason that you feel this way. And then, all right, no judgment on it. How do I nurture it? So how do I do that differently? How do I take care of what this is for me? Where is it? How old is this? Like,
when's the first time
where
you
did
felt
this
it?
get, implanted in me, this belief?
Yeah.
And just bringing some nurturing to that, some awareness to that, and then responding differently. How do you want to show up differently than what it is that you were judging? I think that's going to be a big part of it. And really, the first step is just willingness to look.
Yeah.
So if you want to be judging and you want to be upset, then okay, have a willingness to just experiment. Do an experiment. See if this is true, even in the slightest, and let it go a little bit deeper,
Change the name, put your name in there.
And just see, is that true? Yeah. am I actually projecting a shadow onto them?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just try it.
Look in the mirror.
Look in the mirror.
Shifting.
Shifting in the mirror.
Yeah. All right. That's been another episode of Let That Shift Go podcast. I'm Noel.
And I'm Lena. Let us know what your questions are, and we'd love to use them on a future episode. Or check us out on Insta at Let That Shift Go, or visit our website, serenitycovetemecula.com.